Hi LD2 listeners, you're about to hear something pretty special. Life, Death, and Taxonomy's first ever theme song. We've long set the mood with free-to-use web-found music, but thanks to our friend Casy, we now have a song that's unique to us. So help us show our appreciation by checking out more of Cassie's music at her YouTube channel. You can find it by clicking the link on ldtaxonomy.com or search Cassie Michelle on YouTube. Now let's get into the episode. Some animals just prefer not to play by the rules. Animals change lanes all the time. Bats are mammals that fly. Sharks are fish that give birth to live young. But most animals stick to their kingdom, except for a particular sea slug. When all others spend their lives hunting and gathering for sustenance, this slug goes out of bounds to borrow a technique. But creatures that prove that some rules are made to be broken often find the most success in life, death, and taxonomy. Welcome back to Life, Death, and Taxonomy. It's your 30 minutes of interesting animal info. I'm Joe.
I'm Carlos.
And today we're talking about a naughty little slug that doesn't play by the rules. But more on that later.
There are no rules in Life, Death, and Taxonomy. Did you know that?
It would appear that way after learning what we've learned about this animal.
In fact, our whole goal here is to find animals that break the rules.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, and just for everyone's knowledge, I'm enjoying the extremely comfortable Life, Death, and Taxonomy bear sweater that you can buy by going on our Facebook page and clicking on the post that's pinned at the top to our Teespring account so that you can see what we offer. But this, I'm telling you, this sweater is just, it's the most comfortable sweater I've ever had.
That hoodie is really nice. I don't have that hoodie. I have a t-shirt of it, but my sister has it, and it's extremely comfortable.
It's
you buy, like, it's really a gamble to buy a hoodie online because sometimes they can be like stiff, you know, and not comfortable. But This is like chef's kiss.
This is the polycotton blend of sweaters. It's stretchy, it's soft on the inside. Yeah, it's just great. And plus we get Brian's awesome neon retro artwork of the sunset bear. So Ursine sunset. So go check out what we've got on Teespring because we didn't skimp. It's good stuff. With that shameless plug out of the way, we're talking about the Eastern Emerald Elysia.
This was suggested by our old pal Doug.
Thanks, Doug. I love suggestions, and this one was a great one. I'm surprised that I haven't come across it in my search for
suggested another
animal.
one. He suggested another one coming up in, I think, a couple episodes too.
I will take.
It's also very interesting. He's really finding really interesting ones that I've never even heard of.
Yeah, and I'm surprised. Again, I'm surprised I haven't heard of this one because it's actually. It's got a little bit of a pop culture following to it, or like not a pop culture, a subculture. What is the word? A cult following. There we go.
Yes.
But
I got to watch a TED Talk in preparation for this, which means that people are talking about it.
Yeah, sometimes things just pop up on the world's radar, and this little slug has made it. But you wouldn't know it's a slug because it's the Eastern Emerald Elysia, which is interesting because we both work with somebody named Elysia.
Yeah. So as not to make it sound like we're making fun of the name Elysia, I called it E3 and Esmeralda. Esmeralda seemed like a mixture between all three of those words.
Eastern Emerald Elysia. Yeah. Yes. Wow, that's Esmeralda. Perfect. You've done it. You have made a portmanteau of three words into a word we already have.
But speaking of names, do you have any other names?
Yes. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you're going to talk about the etymology, but Elysium is the
Is delicious slugs?
yeah, Elysium. I don't want to yuck. I don't want to yoke anybody's yak, but if you like to eat slugs, that's fine. But Elysium is the Greek heroes' paradise. It's where they go, and Greek heroes go instead of Hades when they die, according to Greek mythology. So it's, it's what they're fighting for. It's their Valhalla. But we're gonna call it here the big old booger boy, the solar-powered semi-sentient sylvan sapling slug, and a leaf on the wind.
A leaf on the wind is good.
I don't know about that joke. It's kind of a wash.
That's a deep cut only for the real ones out there.
That's not to say if you don't understand the joke, you're not real. But just check out a little show I like to call, and a lot of other people like to call, incidentally, Firefly. That's all well and good, but how can we know anything about this slug if we don't taxonomize it first? So let's do just that. It's in a kingdom we know. Oh, darn it.
Know, love, and are in.
We know, love. Yes, know, love, and are in. And that kingdom is Animalia. The phylum is Mollusca, which we were just in recently. The class is Gastropoda, stomach foots. And we have, count them, 5 clades to go through. So let's have a little bit of fun with the taxonomy. Shall we? The first clade, these are in no particular order, is Heterobronchia. The second clade is Euthenura. The third clade is Panpulmonata. The fourth clade is Sacoglossa. The fifth clade is Placobronchoidea. There we go. The superfamily, so we're out of the clades. The superfamily is Placobronchidae, and the genus is Elysia, and the species is Chlorodica. I'm gonna pronounce it like that, Chlorodica. Like a melodica, like one of those weird harmonica keyboards. But since we're in the business of naming things, it's time for my favorite part of the show, and that part of the show is critter groups. The part of the show where I ask you, Joe, a question, and that question is the same every time. And that is, what is the name of a group of these animals? What is the term of venery, or what is the collective noun? So we're talking about slugs here, and I don't think we've done a slug before. Oh, actually, yes, we have, but I think that was before critter groups. That was the blue sea slug. Go check it out. But so if you have a group of slugs, Joe, would you call it A, an aggregate of slugs, B, a balloon of slugs, C, a cornucopia of slugs, or D, a decision of slugs?
Oh, if it's decision, I'm going to be so mad because they've never made one.
I don't know if you've noticed, but recently I've been trying to have A, B, C, and D if possible.
Oh.
They all match. Aggregate, balloon, cornucopia, and decision.
Cornucopia, I feel like you've used that several times. Or if not, then it's in the genre of things you've used. I'm leaning between balloon and decision. Balloon. Final answer. B for balloon.
That's your final answer?
Yes.
Incorrect. The answer was cornucopia.
Wow. It's actually a thing that holds a lot of things.
Yeah, but I would have to agree with you that this is a dumb one. It's like, unless slugs got together into the shape of a cornucopia, then it really doesn't make much sense. Like a basket.
Yeah.
Like it's a basket of what?
A horn basket.
Do you typically, when you serve slugs as food, do you put them in cornucopias? I thought you only put pumpkins and gourds and stuff and corn and stuff like that.
And fruits.
Fruits of the harvest. But yeah, so it's a cornucopia of slugs.
A cornucopia of love.
Do you want to hear about what this thing looks like? Because I did call it a big old booger boy, so and a sylvan sapling slug, and a leaf on the wind. So there's got to be a connection here, right?
Yeah. if you could describe it for the listeners who are driving.
Will do, because actually the average person probably doesn't know what this looks like, except for the fact that it's called, it's emerald. It's definitely emerald, Eastern Emerald Elysia. So in case all of those things don't give you a clue, this slug is green. Obnoxiously so, in fact. It's basically a slug with the body of a big, wide leaf. Picture a broad, oval-shaped leaf with the veins and everything.
It looks just like a leaf.
It's exactly like a leaf. And then slap a little green slug's head to the part where the leaf stem would normally go. Kind of like a toy in Sid's room. It's like the hybrid of things. It gets this color based on the food it eats, which we'll talk about later. But just know that it can be red. It can also be red or grayish depending on how much of this food is in its system. It's kind of like a flamingo. It kind of takes on the color of what it eats. Yeah.
That's one of those facts that sounds fake until you relearn it as an adult.
Yeah, like flamingos aren't pink because they eat pink things.
Like, why isn't everything the color of things they eat? And it's like, well, they just are, I guess.
Have you ever taken one of those? There's like a white flour that you can put into food coloring, and it'll turn the color of the food coloring.
No.
That was like
yes.
It was one of my favorite things to do when I would visit my grandparents in the Midwest. Is just find those and then dye it some weird brown, disgusting color of all the mix of all the other food dyes. And then
I think that would happen with any flour, but I guess a white flour would show it best.
I think that this one does it faster, or it's just the colors are more vibrant than other species of white flour. But anyway, yeah. So this slug does the same thing, but it can also have little flecks of white and red spots all over it that kind of make it look like a flavored
basket.
It can also have little flecks of white and red spots all over it that make it look like a flavor blasted Cooler Ranch Dorito. Not a sponsor.
Oh man, that would be a good sponsor.
Sure would. Can you imagine? We would definitely cover our hosting costs for the Doritos sponsor. The sluggish head is kind of this amorphous blob like slugs tend to be. It has two little horn-like antennae that stick out the top and two beady black eye spots that are located underneath. So why don't we rip this off like a Band-Aid, and how about you tell us how big this thing is?
Oh, well, now that you mention size, welcome to the Beloved Measure Up segment, the official listener's favorite part of the show. The part of the show when we present the animal size and dimensions in relatable terms through a quiz that's fun for the whole family. It's also part of the show that's introduced by you when you send an audio of yourself saying, singing, or chittering the words measure up into lutaxonomy@gmail.com. We do have a new Measure Up intro this week from Mindset Reframed, a.k.a. Some Rando.
Nice. Some Rando is back.
Back with a vengeance, because this is a good one. You ready?
Yes.
Let me pull it
Wait,
up.
should I turn down my headphones? I'm afraid.
No, it's not particularly loud. Without further ado, the listener's favorite part of the show.
Critter groups.
Wait, I thought he said it was the listener's favorite part of the show.
Oh, well, in that case, measure up.
That stings. Oh, an arrow has pierced my heart.
Hey, at least they mentioned your brainchild.
I did enjoy hearing somebody else care about it.
Well, thanks.
Thank you, some
Thanks
rando.
both of two randos.
Thank you, some rando's compatriot, for
the best randos you've ever thought about.
Thank you, especially to the first rando who was ready to endorse critter groups at a moment's notice.
And thank you for the second rando for the truth. That is the Beloved Measure Up segment. Let's talk about length. That's one of my favorite ones so far. Top 10
that critter
sure.
groups?
No.
Sorry, that measure up.
I thought you were.
I have critter groups on the brain.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. It's my favorite
up.
part of the show.
Let's talk about length. They can be up to 60 millimeters. I wrote millimeters, meters, I guess, 3 M's. But they tend to be 20 to 30 millimeters. So let's call them 30 millimeters.
It's
How
about
many
an inch.
E3s or Esmeraldas go into the length of Key Largo?
By
You ready for a
Largo,
hint?
I'm assuming large.
Yeah, Key Largo is. Here's your hint. Key Largo is Spanish for Key Long. It's the largest of the Florida Keys.
I know. I not only know enough Spanish to know that, but I've also spent a lot of time on Key Largo. It is pretty long. And when you reach it from, I think Federal goes down there. When you reach it, you kind of drive into the center of Key Largo. The rest of it sticks up. So it's even longer than it takes to drive the length of it, or the length of road that passes through it. So I'm going to say 40 miles sounds good.
Yeah, there's also Marathon Key, which I'm assuming is the length of a marathon.
Actually, I don't. I at some point somebody told me why it was called that, and I forgot. But yeah, that's a pretty good assumption.
The diameter might be, or the circumference might be and they run around it.
True. I'm going to go with, 40 miles in length for Key Largo. And this is about an inch. So I'm skipping out on the middleman and figuring out how many inches are in a mile. Because I'm not going to figure out how many feet are in a mile. That's too much work. So 63,360
Final answer?
is the number of inches in a mile.
Oh, that's right.
So we're going to multiply.
I was going to say, you're doing pretty good and you took a wrong turn somewhere.
Yeah, so the answer is 2.5 million. 2.5 million slugs.
Well, the correct answer is 1.6 million.
Oh, so it's not 40.
It's 30. 30
Yeah.
miles or 50 kilometers long is Key Largo. Would you
Interesting.
like to hear about the second one? Because it is lifespan. When I can't find the weight, we go for something great.
Is that the
Lifespan.
first time you said that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I want to hear it every time you can't figure out the weight of an animal. I expect it.
It lives for 10 months.
That's-
Between like 9 and a year, most of the time 10 months. How many Esmeraldas go into the age of George Washington Carver when he died?
He's the cherry tree man.
Is he?
I think he's the one that. No,
That was George.
no,
that
he
was,
no, he invented peanut butter.
Yeah, here's your hint. George Washington Carver was
George
an
Regular
agricul-
Washington did the cherry tree.
Yeah. You just thought carving in wood,
Yes,
chopping
yes.
down trees. George Washington Carver was an agricultural scientist that worked to create crop alternatives to cotton and to prevent soil depletion, which happens if you plant in the same crop in the same field too many times in a row. He may be most famous for his publication that taught 105 ways to use the peanut.
He is one of the greatest Americans to have ever lived.
I mean, our friend Andrew and other people with peanut allergies
I disagree.
might feel like he's a villain, but he's definitely. I love peanut butter so much, so
Yeah.
he's definitely a hero of mine.
All right.
He also had a nice mustache.
I imagine that was just par for the course back in those times.
He was also a Tuskegee Institute professor. I'm just going to keep saying George Washington Carver quotes or facts until you
All right,
get
I'm
the answer.
going to say he was 60 years old because I just assume that.
It takes that long at least to come up with that many ideas for peanuts.
Yeah, and also consumption. And this guy lives for not this guy, but
This
Esmeralda.
hermaphroditic slug.
Esmeralda lives for, you said 9 months? 8 months?
10 months.
10 months. So I guess I'm just going to ballpark it and say 53 years. 53. Wait, that's not right. Sorry. Yeah, I'm going the other direction. 67 slugs. 67 slug lifetimes go into. So when George Washington Carver was born and a slug was born at the same time, there were 67 generations of that slug that were in existence or that had come and gone by the time he died.
That's right. But it's wrong. The correct answer is 94.8 lifespans. George Washington Carver was 79 when he died.
Oh, he outlived the median. He beat the average. Good for him.
I mean, he was one of the, brightest minds of his scientific field, so he's beating a lot of averages.
You just when you hear about people who did amazing things back then, sometimes
they're like, and he died at 39.
Yeah, he wrote all the best books we've ever heard of, and then he was like murdered, or he died of tuberculosis or something.
He was killed because he kicked something, and then it got gangrenous, and he died. Which is true about Jack Daniels. He kicked a safe out of anger because he couldn't get it open, I think, and then he died from it.
That is a way to go. All right, I was not pitifully wrong, but
no, close enough. My sister says this is the worst kind of measure up, though.
The one
she
where
says it's the best when you're right on the money or really far off.
Insanely. So I apologize in advance for getting almost there.
That's all I got for measure ups.
All right, let's talk about some fast facts. So first we have to talk about where this thing lives. Because if you're thinking slug, you're probably thinking of this thing that lives, it's like maybe under a leaf or in the rainforest or something like that. This is an ocean slug. Or actually, at the very least, like salt marshes and tidal pools. It likes salt water. It doesn't live in the middle of the ocean, but it can be found. It's a water slug, an aquatic slug, and it's mostly found along the east coast of the U.S. So this can be as far north as Canada, and as far south as, you guessed it, the Keys, the Florida Keys.
Yeah,
and it can also be in the Gulf of Mexico. So it kind of has a pretty wide range along there, and it's interesting because it's clearly tolerant of very cold waters and very warm waters.
Yeah, because it's not very deep, so it's definitely feeling the cold
and the warmth
and the heat.
So these slugs, like a lot of gastropods, and as you alluded to earlier, are hermaphroditic, meaning they have boy parts and girl parts.
Okay.
There are children who listen to this. But
I'm just like, a slug's parts are not boy parts or girl parts.
Boy slugs and girl slugs, I mean, they're both. But they don't self-fertilize like the African giant snail does. You can go listen to that episode if you want to hear more about self-fertilization. But what they do is instead they meet up with another slug and decide which parts they feel like using that day. So it's like, oh, you doing the boy thing? Well, I'll do the girl thing this time. So that's how...
It's like when you're playing an RPG and everyone else is playing the DPS and you have to be the healer.
Yeah. DPS meaning damage per second, I guess, right? Yeah, that's...
yeah.
So everybody wants to be the tank with all the armor, but it's like, fine, whatever. I will be the rogue. But yeah, sure, we can liken it to a D&D campaign. So that's how they spawn. And here is an interesting story that I found. I don't know if this has anything to do with your... Actually, I'm going to wait until after you're done with your TED Talk to talk about my story, and in case you cover it. So, without further ado, I hand it over to you.
Okay. Nice. The major fact this week is called the sap-sucking sun eater.
Oh, are we naming the major facts now?
You usually do have a title for them. We just don't say it out loud. Yeah. Members of the clade Sacoglossa, which you said was one of the clades, are called sun eaters because they have the unique ability to photosynthesize. That's right. It's an animal that photosynthesizes.
Wow.
That means
sun eaters sound like an imperialistic alien force that comes and like drains your sun.
If you slept through 7th grade biology, a plant gains energy from the sun through a process called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a fairly complex and apparently inefficient process. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
I had heard that it wasn't that great of a system that, but it was the system they used.
But without it, there would be no life on Earth.
Right, exactly.
But at the end of the day, it lets organisms sustain themselves without moving, so that's pretty good. So plant cells have something that the kingdom we know, love, and are in do not have, and that is plastids, stuff in their cells. But one of these plastids is called chloroplast, and it's instrumental for photosynthesis because it stores chlorophyll, and it's where photosynthesis occurs. There's much more to learn about photosynthesis, and if you want to, there's a link in the word photosynthesis on this page on ldtaxonomy.com to learn more. There's a video. But we have to move on because we have to figure out how this slug is related. Esmeralda doesn't have these chloroplasts in its body to make photosynthesis happen. So it can't really do it. Oh, wait. Yes, it can. Because these slugs munch on algae and suck up all the chloroplast and save it for later.
Huh. So it hijacks the batteries.
So you say, big deal. I eat salads all the time. Does that mean I can also photosynthesize? No, it does not. Because Esmeralda still has a problem at this point. Chloroplasts need a specific protein that's made in a plant cell nucleus to continue to function. So photosynthesis, the act of photosynthesis, damages chloroplasts and these these little cells and these things in cells. So it damages the chloroplasts. They need to be replaced. So plants have this protein, this DNA that makes this protein that replaces and replenishes this chloroplast. And obviously slug DNA doesn't have that. So somehow the chloroplast continues to photosynthesize, converting sunlight to energy. And it's not like, oh, they eat it and they can photosynthesize for a little bit, right? And then it wears off. No, like if they eat it, they can photosynthesize for a long time.
They're like, it's like Rogue from X-Men.
Yeah, kind of. Researchers have discovered this protein-making genome is actually found in the slug, but after they do their whole eating the plants thing. So somehow the genome is transferred to the slug at some point from the algae.
Huh.
Once they have the chloroplast and the genes to keep them going, they never have to eat again. Literally, that's it for them. They have one meal, and it lasts them a year.
Really?
Yeah.
So they literally become what they eat.
Yeah, they are become plants.
It's like it's like if you had a burger and then you gained cow DNA.
Yeah. They can go their whole life cycle without eating, which can be up to a year. So the algae gene is transferred and integrated into the slug. And this is the first time scientists have found a naturally occurring gene transfer. If you know anything about like gene therapy and stuff like that, it's the idea of like, let's take genes from something and put them into something else so that you can heal it. So like the most obvious application of that would be somebody's sick because of a genetic disorder, and we're going to take some genes and replace the bad ones, or something like that. And then the other applications are like, let's have the Navy. The guy in the TED Talk made a joke about this. Let's have the Navy people all have this like chlorophyll gene, and then they never have to eat when they're out at sea. You know, they can just
suntan and eat at the same time.
Yeah, so those are the big sci-fi dreams about stuff like this, like transferring DNA and integrating it into your own DNA. So if we could do that with like axolotl DNA, then we could regrow limbs, or
we are going to become the X-Men.
Right. So that's the pipe dream, but the clearest thing is to treat genetic diseases. That's if we could figure out how they are so good at like integrating this into their DNA, then we could maybe possibly figure out how to do it a little bit better, like do stuff like gene therapy. We're not actually very good at it, according to the TED Talk guy. I should link the TED Talk guy in the article. But yeah.
That's crazy. Are they the only animals that assimilate the DNA of the thing they eat?
I think there are 2 other ones, and I think they're all slugs. But I'm not sure. I saw like a thing in a sidebar when I was researching that said 3 animals that photosynthesize. But this guy said this is the only one that we've like actually shown. And they actually, to do this research, they got the people in Hong Kong that do like the genome research. They map genomes.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this like supercomputer that's like able to do it really fast. They like started like investigating the genomes of both the algae and the slug, and like came to the conclusion, oh yeah, like the slug is integrating DNA.
That is crazy. I mean, I would have called this the Kirby slug, like where it just eats something and then just takes on its best qualities.
As long as that thing is algae.
Yeah.
And its quality is photosynthesis.
Yes. I mean, yeah, it can't just eat a fish and then get gills and. Although, yeah. Wow, cool. Do you want to hear my story?
Sure.
Okay, so this slug inspired a company called Alga Culture to create a wearable suit based on the idea that we're all eventually going to be sustained off of colonies of algae that we have to wear on our bodies. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Dune, but it's not algae, but like they have these suits that recycle all of their
bacteria,
sweat and waste into drinkable water as they live on a desert planet. They're called still suits. It's kind of like that. So a singer in London performed a mini opera called the Algae Opera, where she blew the carbon dioxide from her singing into the tubes. Now this suit looks like a face hugger from Alien, and I feel like we talk about Alien so much on this show, but it is the perfect organism, and we talk about organisms. But yeah, it looks like a face hugger that's positioned in front of her face and mouth, and then all of the tubes kind of go around her head and then down her back and over her body in this like full-on suit. And the algae collects on the tubes, and so and it's all green, and so she would blow this carbon dioxide into the tubes as she sang, and the algae would feed off of the CO2, and she would feed on the algae in between notes or songs or something like that. I didn't see a video of her or anything. The idea was that the notes that she sang, the different notes, would change the amount of CO2 going into the suit, and therefore the taste of the algae, which the audience could enjoy at their leisure after the performance. They could literally taste the music in what may be the nastiest musical performance since Meatloaf. Or since Ozzy Osbourne bit the head off that bat.
Wow.
And it's pretty... If you type in Eastern Emerald Elysia suit or just alga culture, you'll see this person wearing the suit. And it is nuts.
We got to put a link in the notes.
So thank you, Esmeralda, for the inspiration for this gem of humanity.
And thank you, Doug, for inspiring this gem of an episode.
I can't believe that I was about to go another day without knowing about this. And Doug saved me from that future. Thank you, Doug. So that's all I got. You got anything else?
That's all I got.
All right, so for you out there in Podcastia, activate your cells, take in some sun, and for goodness sake, don't do it without some chloroplast, like the Eastern Emerald Elysia in Life, Death, and Taxonomy.
Life, Death, and Taxonomy is my favorite in the world podcast.
Strange things.
Things are happening. I wonder what that song would taste like with the suit on.